tried to get out, and the time was now.
Yes. Welcome to another episode of Sitting Down with Standups. I am your co-host, because that's how we refer to ourselves, Elena Gonzalez, and I'm here with the bean behind the scenes, White Daryl himself. Daryl Bean. I get to sit in the big chair today because Justin's not here. I don't know if it's that obvious that I'm going solo today. I've got two guests that are going to be coming up in just a little bit, but I get to sit in the center. Me and Daryl get to start the show. We had way too much discussion about how it was going to start. I definitely didn't overthink anything at all because that's not how my brain works.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm just.
Oh yay!
And make this because it's too weird otherwise. I'm not. Just there's a mic. It's fine.
Here we can make it weird together.
Fuck. I don't know.
Hi Daryl, how are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
Not too shabby. I went floating yesterday.
Okay.
Have you ever done this?
Okay. I mean, in a general sense,
it's floated.
Is this like a thing?
I'm testing to see if you're a witch. Is basically.
Gotcha.
No, like talking about overthinking is where. Again, this makes sense in my brain, but I'm not saying the words out loud. No, it's like a sensory deprivation.
Oh no, I haven't.
Kind of thing. I'm not as cool as Rogan, but there are places.
Who is?
Fair enough. No, but it's a whole tank of body temperature water. So much Epsom salt. It's like 1,200 pounds of Epsom salt. So you're gonna float no matter what. And then you close it up. It can't get any light. Can't get any sound. And it's supposed to help. It's one of the things that you could do from like a meditative perspective and get yourself out of yourself. And I learned that I've been doing it for years, and I still am not good at it.
I define not good at it. What do you mean? What does that look like?
So thankfully, like when I first started, you put earphones in your ears just so water isn't gushing into your brain, because you lay like right about here. And when I first started, all I could focus on was the sound of my own beating heart, as if you're trapped in a cage, and then you forget how to breathe because the sound is just pounding in your head. I'm not there anymore, but I am at the part where I will just fixate on one thing, and I can't seem to push that away. And so the thing that I was fixated on this time is I saw a billboard in Indiana for vasectomies.
Okay.
Because Indiana's the place to go for vasectomies. That was offering a buy one, get one free.
Okay. Hey, Bill. Let's go get a vasectomy together. Like
you want to go halvesies?
Let's split it. What? Okay.
And I was just like, wait, we women can't decide to have an abortion, but guys get to have like, with and without pulp selection. Like, that's where my brain went with it. And for 45 minutes, I just kept coming back to this pulp, no pulp thing. And I'm like, no, this is supposed to be relaxing, like meditative. And I'm like, really? You can decide. Anybody watching this, I know you don't get to pick your ball and you can only have one ball. But that was where my brain just would not stop. So I'm a crazy person.
Do you is there a recommendation when you go in and be like, I can't pick which one? Which should I go? People are usually a lefty kind of a guy.
No, they take each situation is unique, and they judge the weight. They take a couple pictures, which is your best side.
There's a descendancy situation that maybe that's something that's like, well, if you do that, it'll drop it, it'll even them out.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, all right, good.
You take genetics into it. My dad was a lefty. His dad before
lefty.
him was a lefty. We're going to keep the tradition going. Oh, yeah. Balls are fun. But I love the fact that was their entire marketing campaign.
That's pretty good.
I'm sure it's just because, everybody loves the idea of a deal. But still, like, they've got this cartoon ball with a big smiley face. Like, buy one, get one free. I don't remember, but I think there may have been scissors involved.
Do you remember the movie Johnny Dangerously?
I know of it.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I've never seen it.
There's like this whole film, like this instructional film that Michael Keaton shows Griffin Dunn.
Okay.
In it about your testicles and you. Basically, if you have sex too much, your testicles will explode. So I'm imagining the little ball guy from Johnny Dangerously.
Oh no!
It's great. It is on HBO Max or Max, so
perfect. Because I've been wondering at what age and how I'm going to bring up the sex talk with my son, and I feel like you just nailed it.
Nailed it. It's right there. Just show him that. He's going to be like, I'm going to go to law school, because that's what happened to Griffin Dunn. So
I'm not going to have my balls explode. I'm going to go to law school.
Nailed it. I mean, it worked. Worked for Johnny Dangerously, and
it can work for you.
It can work for you.
Thanks for coming on this side of the
desk.
Is that what we would call this?
Whatever it is.
The desk?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Should we get some other chatty
people
in here?
I should get out of here so that we can get the other people in here who are really here to talk.
Yes.
So I'm gonna do that.
I have a feeling that we're going to... I have a suspicion that we are going to be able to cover some topics. So, I love that Justin always focuses so much on creative segues. So it's like a nice surprise. And I realized coming over here, because I was trying to think of a fun segue, it's already listed on the title of the episode. So, yeah, we're talking to the Motor City Comedy Festival folks. Dan Turco and Lauren Uchailik. Let's give it up. Woo! And Justin, I promise when you're back, I will have you teach me the ways of your segues. Because I was like, I don't know how he does it. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi. So for those who are not familiar, this is Dan and this is Lauren. I know that they get confused all the time. Let's start at the very top with the promo stuff. Like, hit them with all the dates, the websites, all that stuff, and then we'll
Absolutely.
Kind of break it down.
Motor City Comedy Festival this year is taking place September 14th through the 17th at Detroit House of Comedy, as well as at the Independent Comedy Club. And I think we have one show at Detroit Shipping Company.
Nice.
Our headliners this year, we have Hans Kim, we have Jeremiah Watkins, we have Mary Lynn Ragskew, and we have Mateen Stewart. So we've got a really fun lineup of headliners, and then we've also got 30 comedians from all over the world that submitted to be part of the festival, and they're going to come into town. And then we also have, I think, 12 workshops this year, which is the most we've ever done, and those are open to any local comedians who are interested in joining us and learning more about industry. We've got classes in writing, we've got classes in marketing and PR and all kinds of other cool stuff.
That's really, really great. And where can they go to get tickets and all that stuff?
MotorCityComedyFestival.com.
All right.
And then on all of the socials, just search for Motor City Comedy Festival, because some places we've had to abbreviate it to Fest, so it's all kinds of fun.
All right. Nice. Thanks for coming to chat about it, guys. So there are so many things with this, and talking. You mentioned that this is the most workshops that you've done, and I personally, I'm a sucker for learning and a nerd in that sense, and that's what got me into learning about Motor City Comedy Festival initially, like a couple years ago, was that you guys kind of opened the door on some of those workshops. Why? Like, why is that something that's so important to you to make that accessible? Because I think it really sets you guys apart.
To me, that was one of the reasons I wanted to found the festival. It's because I went to college for theater, and I went to college like learning a lot about different nonprofits, and I know I had a lot of really cool advantages being able to take classes in it. But then when I was in college and I started stand-up, a lot of the other people, I took a stand-up class at Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase, and a lot of the other people were older, and they didn't have a lot of the business skills that I was learning about in college. So I'd had this idea way back then, and didn't really have enough people, enough time, enough anything to really get it off the ground. So I always wanted it to be like sort of like a trade school for artists, to have these opportunities where you stumble into stand-up, you're like, hey, I want to tell jokes, but you don't realize, oh, I also need to learn how to read a contract. I need to know how to do my taxes. As a 1099, what can I write off?
Right.
How do I market myself without feeling gross about it? How do I write for TV? Because that's another step a lot of people take. Last year we had a really cool workshop from a local talent agency that was about getting into doing voiceover as another sort of side hustle for something that, this is a way you can be making money and supplement the fact that you're doing stand-up and be able to sort of still have more time to do that wherever you're going.
How old is the festival?
We started in 2017, so this is our fifth full festival.
Okay.
And we had our little sort of festival sponsored show in 2021. We took the year off in 2020, so we had 2017, 18, 19.
Why?
Yeah, just did some virtual workshops in 2020 for no reason whatsoever. And then in 2021, we sponsored a show because we wanted to still sort of show our support to the city of Detroit and local comics. And then last year we had a full festival, and getting back at it again this year.
Nice. That's so great. And I love that you have so many different shows at so many different venues. And the fact that they're in the city of Detroit, that's...
Yeah, that's always been something super important to us. I mean, we would love to be able to spread out the love to additional venues as we're able to, but being able to find places in the city is so important, and being able to find audiences, because every year it's so cool how much really quality comedy comes to Detroit, but we end up competing with some incredible powerhouse of comedy every year. Last year, our shows were across the street from where Chris Rock had 3 sold-out nights.
Oh, wow.
And every night we had a Chris Rock audience to compete with.
Wow.
And then, I mean, in the past, there's been John Mulaney, Kyle Kinane, I mean, all kinds of incredible comedians. And it's great that there are these crowds for comedy and in the city of Detroit. It's not just people who are the indie people. It's people coming from all over the place that are interested.
That's awesome. And I know that you are a newer addition to the team.
Yeah.
How long have you been with the crew?
6 months? 5 or 6
Yeah.
months?
Nice.
January-ish?
Yeah, January, February was when I got brought on. And I'm the Ringo star of the festival.
What is your
Don't botch it.
what is your puzzle piece in the mix?
Whatever they asked me. No, I was I managed submission the submission process.
Oh, I bet that's got to be
And we had the most submissions we've ever had.
nice.
This year. We beat the previous record by 40 or 50.
Fantastic.
And then I'm also helping plan the panels and workshops. Just a general gopher for anybody who's in town. I think I'm going to be telling volunteers what to do.
Nice.
So
Yeah, I can't imagine all of the things that go into going through submissions. I know that's the part that any comedian watching this has actually experienced. They send in their clip and then cross their fingers and wait a couple weeks for somebody to say yay or nay. But I imagine it's got to be so much more involved on your end.
So we have a process where multiple judges review every clip.
Oh, that's great.
To make sure that because comedy, all art is subjective. Comedy's extra subjective. So we want as many different. We want different eyes watching every single clip, and then kind of going from there as far as where the ratings lie.
Love it.
So we're pretty happy. We only had 2 Zoom submissions. We had 2 out of the 400 or so that were done on Zoom mics.
Interesting.
They did not. Neither submission made it into the festival.
But my initial reaction to that is, idiot. Like that was my gut response.
That was ours too.
Yeah.
But then I'm wondering, like, if the comedy's good, I wonder if I'm trying to formulate what I'm trying to say. If Bill Burr submits to the festival, but he uses a Zoom mic, he's still Bill Burr over Zoom.
The guidelines and the rules and when you submit that you agree to follow specifically ask not for Zoom mics.
Oh, okay. Well, then that changes the entire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also,
yeah. Read
you
the
don't
rules.
know if someone, like, a Zoom clip can be really different than being able to perform in a room. And because none of our shows are Zoom
Right.
shows, it's very different to be able to, I mean, a lot of people can say a lot of things by themselves in their house. But how can they handle that if there is a room full of people and if there is any sort of interaction from the crowd in it? Not that you like hope there's going to be interaction, but
Right.
you have no real frame of reference, and you hope that people, I mean, it's not to fully discount Zoom clips forever, but right now it doesn't make sense in the context of this isn't a Zoom festival.
Right. And we are, a little. We are further separated out, because then my second thought with the Zoom mic was, oh well, pandemic and things were shut down, and it's like, but we're a couple years out of that. So if it is that old and you just don't have a clip, well, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, and I think what all comics need to realize is that a submission clip is a resume. Mm-hmm. It's you showing a booker or a producer what you can do. Mm-hmm. And that's why we don't want clips that are,
Best
cut.
of.
Yeah, best
yeah.
of clips, right? We don't want Zoom clips or, we don't want the one-of-one clip, right? Where, a heckler or, there's a bachelorette party that you're riffing with the whole time, because they're not going to be at our event. Having the same bachelorette party.
That would be the worst kind of comedy team.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to...
I bring my own bachelorette party.
everywhere.
Right.
I brought 6 drunk women. They're plants in the audience.
And they have to wear a crown made of dicks everywhere.
So there's
Like
not...
very specific.
Yeah.
That's
decor.
the name of their comedy troupe, is
Yeah.
Crown Full of Dicks. That's
Yeah, so...
Obviously.
Yeah, so...
They'll be headlining 2024.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so no, that's... You want to show, I want to see what it looks like when you're on a stage telling jokes, not
Right.
anything else. I don't care about anything. I don't want to hear... We had a submission... I don't know if I told you about it. We had a submission of somebody just doing crowd... Like, it was a short... It was too short. The clip was too short, and it was of them just doing crowd work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it's not what we want. We want real jokes.
Before we turned the mics on for realsies, we were talking a little bit about age and kind of when we started in comedy and the difference between someone who was young and started and life experience and everything. But you bringing this up and having that prior discussion kind of blurs it in my brain, and I want to touch on that a little bit, is where we're at right now in the social landscape. Crowd work clips are hitting the algorithm exponentially higher than actual stand-up.
Sure.
So as newer comedians are coming up in this multiverse, that is what they're used to. So if I'm growing up and watching Evening at the Improv and I'm seeing 5 to 7 minute sets that are in clubs and people are wearing suit coats, then that's my understanding of stand-up comedy. But if I'm coming up and all I see are Matt Rife kind of fucking somebody in the front row, that's my impression of comedy. Did you see that over the submissions
Not as
Or-
much from
okay.
what I mean, I try not to be a judge of the submissions unless it's absolutely necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless some judge, like, gets hit by a bus or something, you know?
Right.
But I think because, I mean, submission clips are 5 minutes long, reels are usually about a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So you like to, and we've specifically asked not just reels, because we want to see that you know how to navigate a set.
Right.
1 minute, that can be maybe a joke, maybe a little bit of crowd work, but that's not enough to know that you're a good comedy. Like,
Right.
you're good at comedy, you're good
Right.
at structuring a set. So
Right.
you need to see a little bit more of them, and having a 5 minute set kind of forces that on you. Because if you're doing 5 minutes of crowd work, I mean, it doesn't seem like you're prepared for like a full set. And you can be, but that's not what the goal of that is, you know?
Yep.
And seeing a very clearly well-structured set of jokes is so different. And usually if somebody is good at telling jokes, you can find people that are really good at crowd work, but just because you're good at crowd work doesn't mean you're good at telling jokes.
Exactly. It
like,
does
they're not
not.
mutually exclusive in that way.
Yep.
So it's like, if someone's great at both, incredible, wonderful, love that. But you don't want someone to be so good at crowd work that they're relying on that, because if they don't have a crowd member that's interesting, or they
Yeah.
don't have an engaging crowd, like, if you're relying too much on that person to be what populates it, you can just kind of get knocked off if the people aren't willing to engage with you.
Yeah, I got into this discussion literally last night at an open mic, and talking about I was at a mic, and there was a brand new baby comic that was doing
learning to
open
walk.
mic stuff. Yes. And they I don't know a lot of newer comics. Just personally, I haven't had gone full immersion in the new crowd. So when I'm at an open mic, I'm very much the soccer mom that's out to have a drink on a Saturday night, because I'm not presenting as comic. I leave my flannel in the car. And so I'm sitting there, and this guy decides that I'm going to be the crowd work target.
Cool.
And so in my head, in like a millisecond, I was like, okay, let's go. You're at the gym.
What
and
a fun
And you
challenge.
want to work out? Let's work out. And so he says some snarky line, and then he's like, and what do you do for a living? And I went full soccer mom, and I just said, oh, I'm in marketing and advertising. Exactly, because not every crowd member is going to come back at you and be like, oh, well, fuck you, bro.
Exactly.
Oh. And not everyone is going to be like, oh, I jerk pugs off for cancer research.
Right.
Like, you're going to get basic bitch responses.
Exactly.
And if you're not able to take that and make it funny, don't dip your toe in the water.
Right. And you can't, because you can't control what other people are going to say.
Yep.
Although one of the funniest pieces of crowd work I remember, was Brad Wenzel asking what someone did for a living, and he goes, no, the person said it, and then he goes, no. Then he hands him a piece of paper. And then he's like, so tell me what you do for a living. And read what's on the paper, and it's like, I work on the railroad. And then Brad goes, oh, is it 9 to 5 or all the live long day? And I wept because I was like, that's the crowd work I've been
But that's not
deeply requiring in my
Yeah.
soul for my entire life. I didn't know about. But you can't, unless you're prepared for it.
Yeah.
You can't you just can't know what someone else is going to say. There's an unpredictability that I think, especially if you're very new to comedy, you're not prepared for.
Right.
Even improvisers have to, when you see a good improviser, they've done it before. It's not like they go out their first day and they're doing a great job of taking people's suggestions and turning them into something really cool. You have to see it, and then you have to figure out how does that. I mean, one of the best crowd work comics I remember seeing very early in my comedy was Kira Sultanovich.
Oh, she's
And-
great.
I remember seeing her at the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase, and I was probably 21, And I remember she would do a little bit of crowd work, but then she would tie it back into a joke.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't just doing crowd work. Oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, God. Oh, that reminds me of, like, this one time, my mom. And, like, that's just, like, how my mom did this thing. And it felt very conversational and very approachable in a way.
Yep.
And if you are coming into crowd work just trying to be, like, the aggressor and they just don't care,
Yep.
that can be such a problem. Like,
Yeah.
people just, if you don't want that to be, like, not everyone comes to a comedy show to be talked to.
Exactly.
That's aggressor is the right word. Like
Yeah.
when I talk to like my family or coworkers or my out of comedy friends, that's their anxiety about going to a show.
I
is
don't want to
being
sit
talked
up
to.
front. Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to. Very few people want to be talked to at a comedy show. It's not an interactive thing for a lot of people. That's why they like watching comedy at home.
Right.
Because when you watch it on Netflix, that guy's not going to make fun of you.
Right. Right.
He's not going to make fun of your date, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
The way that, and I think comics see viral clips of Patton Oswalt taking down a heckler
Yeah.
or you know, some of the other ones. In 9 years, I don't think I've ever had a true heckler. Been overserved and been too chatty with each other.
Yeah.
But I've never had somebody be like, "Yeah, you suck, Pat." Like that doesn't exist.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
It happens in that aggressive of a way so infrequently that it's memorable when it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, it's something that happens, like, oh, remember, like, there's the lore of the time that, like, Carl Flanagan had a guy jump up on stage at Joey's and they both had to be taken outside because the guy was heckling him from the front row so bad. And it's like, but that's like a one-time thing. It's not like there was regularly someone jumping onto the stage.
Yeah,
kind of things.
Jeff Horst had a dildo thrown at him.
Right, like,
you know, that's not,
it's not
the norm.
It's like the number of times that I thought when I was growing up that I was going to have to deal with quicksand in my life.
Exactly.
Like the proportion of
Exactly.
time I saw it far outweighs the number of times I've seen it in real life.
I mean, maybe it's partially Princess Bride's fault. Like,
So you mentioned 9 years. I'm gonna guess that that's how long you've been doing comedy.
Yes.
Let's talk origin stories a little. What bit you? What gave you the comedy bug?
I saw Robin Williams died, and I saw there's an opening. there's
How's your forearm hair?
Here's my window. If somebody takes his. No,
Hello.
Yeah, I sucked at every other art form.
Fair.
I'm tone deaf, so music is out. I tried theater, that didn't really stick. I think I'm a good writer, but I don't have the patience to go through the editing process of writing.
Okay.
The idea of editing a novel, writing a novel doesn't seem so bad, but coming back and rewriting a novel sounds like hell.
Gotcha.
See also screenplays or short fiction or anything like that. The idea, like, I want to be able to. The beauty of comedy for me is I can think about, hey, is this a joke? And then a few hours later, find out. Mm-hmm. And in real time, tinker with it and get that instant gratification that no other performing art or creative art for me really does.
Okay. Were you a performer when you were younger? Like, have you always, been kind of the hammy person, or is it more the immediate gratification of the writing, and by doing it on stage, you are forced to perform it?
So I moved around a lot as a kid. So I went to 7 schools.
Oh, wow.
So 2 elementary, 3 middle, 2 high. So I was very used to, at a young age, not knowing people and
Gotcha.
having to be outgoing and relating well to others, right? Find something in common, relate my experience to them, and just got very good at that spiel of like, hey, let me get to know you better,
Right,
and hey,
right,
let me, and so that's always been a thing for me, and then I have a mouth on me. So when I was growing, so when I dealt with, so when you get bullied, because when you're always the new kid, you're frequently the bullied kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't much of a fight. I didn't want to fight, but I had a mouth. I would fight with my mouth. So that was, okay, I can be witty. I can say things that I think are funny. maybe my other, outsider friends think are funny. The jock who's hassling us doesn't, but he's too dumb to know anyway,
Right.
as an angsty 13-year-old.
Uh-huh.
And then, so that was always there. I should have put together younger that I'm like, oh, I like comedy. I should have, there are all these times in my life growing up where I'm like, yeah, that was a moment that, I auditioned for a play when I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
And they're like, hey, just
What
go.
play?
It was a student-written one-act festival.
Okay.
At the high school. So I auditioned for it, and the audition was like, hey, just get up and talk for 5 minutes. And I just got up and, bullshitted and, got off stage, and my buddy who was sitting with the director was like, she thought you were really funny. And when I should have been like, maybe being on stage on being funny is a thing I can do. But instead I was like, I'm going to go home and play Tomb Raider.
Priorities.
So that's what I did,
Sure.
And I did, I did a public speaking class in college, like everybody has to at Eastern. I went to Eastern Michigan. That's a requirement, is public speaking. And all of my public speaking was funny. And I should have been like, hey, I like doing this. But instead I'm like, And then I went home and watched football instead of,
But it's something, and I do think that generationally it's starting to change a little bit more, just in overall communication. But back then, people didn't talk about the pathways to get to other places. So it's like you probably knew that comedians existed, but it's not inherent to make those connections. I remember I started in radio and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had a conversation with a 50-year-old construction worker guy, and I was telling him I would make these tapes growing up, and I was talking over songs and doing all this stuff, and he just looked at me and he's like, then fucking go in radio. And I was like, well, but that's for my touch points were Jim Harper and Howard Stern. But I'm like, and yeah,
Wow, opposite ends of the spectrum.
I know. I was
really
I'm like,
bring
that's
it
for
around.
Jim Harper and Howard Stern. And I will never forget this man. He takes a big drag off of his cigarette and he's like, do you think they just came out of their mom's pussy with a microphone? You can do that. But it took somebody to say, oh, right. And so at 13, you're doing well, kind of telling jokes in a conversational way. Tomb Raider makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was I consumed comedy the way that everybody else did in the mid-aughts in high school. And that was on Comedy Central.
Dane Cook.
I wasn't a Dane Cook. Jim Gaffigan.
Okay.
Dimitri Martin. Martin, Jim Gaffigan, and then whatever Premium Blend was, or,
Yep.
the 30-minute or, the
Yep.
20-minute, because of commercials, blocks that they would have on Comedy Central. So, I knew Jim Gaffigan and Dimitri Martin, but most of the time when I would watch comedy, it wasn't like, oh, I'm learning this person's name. It was, I'm watching comedy. Not,
Yes.
I'm watching
This
Mike
comedian.
Birbiglia
Right.
or John Mulaney. I'm watching some, just stand-up as this nebulous thing.
Yep.
And I definitely wouldn't, I don't think I would have had the ability to be like, okay, how do I do this?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is just something that I like, and is, and when I first started, I was 25, and I just looked up comedy clubs, and was like,
Why?
okay, who has an open, because Robin Williams died.
Oh,
Robin-
oh!
no,
I
because-
thought
that was real.
I thought that was a bit. Okay.
Robin Williams is dead.
Yeah.
And Robin Williams famously killed himself. And at the time, I was reading an article written by Jason Pargin, who at the time was using the pen name David Wong, on back when it was still good, crack.com, talking about his and then several of the other editors at that website back when it was a really great comedy hive on the internet, about them dealing with anxiety and depression and things like that. And it's like, this is something that all of these funny people deal with, and that, if you deal with, consider getting help and all of these things. And instead of getting help, I took out of that, oh, maybe I should try using this as comedy, as,
I
and,
1,000% thought it was a bit. I love that was actually the catalyst.
Yeah, it was somebody writing an article about, he talks about Chris Farley in it,
okay.
about how Chris Farley died. and that the series of events that led up to that. And it was like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm not Chris Farley in a lot of ways, but in terms of just like I said, moved around a lot, not always actually comfortable in my skin, using humor as a defense mechanism. Well, okay, what if I use this thing that I've always had around me as this, shield or thing to keep myself okay? What if I did it more proactively, and more constructively.
Purposefully, yeah.
Purposefully, yeah.
So you open the phone book or look on Google, comedy clubs. Yeah. I realized as soon as the words came out, no, I'm way older. So, you go to Google, you Google comedy clubs, and was it Joey's?
It was Joey's. Joey's. R.I.P. Joey's. You're an Indian restaurant now.
And did you just kind of show up for the open mic, or did you try to do some research and figure out what to do?
Yeah, you had to call, and I think it took me 3 tries.
Okay. 3
consecutive weeks of calling to try to get on, and I think Ridley's had a similar thing where you called on. I think the Showcase had one where you called on, but I think Joey's was the website that was the easiest for me to understand. Was the one I'm like, oh, that's the easy one. So yeah, I did Joey's, and looking back, it was an open mic. It was in August, and it was one of the looking back, I'm like, oh, there are a lot of real comics on that show because it had Brad Wenzel was on that show. Zach Stein was on that show. Lynn Yafchek was on that show. Mike Stanley was on that show. And Bruce Pike was on that show.
Nice.
And Bruce hosted it.
Okay.
And it's like, yeah, that was looking back, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty high average open mic. Regardless of who else was on it. And I had him, I had been worrying about sweating it I didn't tell anyone. I told the girl I was dating at the time, it was not my wife, that I was doing this, but I didn't tell my family. I didn't, because I don't want to be like, hey, remember that 6 weeks you tried doing, and then never live it down. I'm like, no, I can't tell anyone that I'm doing this for months. So I sat in my office where I was working at the time, and just with the timer on my phone, be like, okay, is this a set? I didn't know what the light was. I didn't.
Wow, that's really well prepared.
That is really
well, but I didn't know what the light was. I didn't know.
That's fine, man. Timing your set beforehand. I feel like a lot of open mic first timers don't get that engaged. They're just like, we'll figure out when we get there.
No, I had to figure out. I'm like, okay, what are the jokes I'm gonna tell? What's my, not what my set is gonna be. Just what am I gonna do up there?
Sure.
And I went up there and I had an intro written. And that was the only time I've ever done that. Of hey,
to give to the host.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this so much.
No, I don't think I was just hey, just say this when you bring me up. I didn't have it written down on a card.
I love it.
That's the best.
I didn't have it written down, but hey, bring me up as this.
Do you remember what it was?
No. And
Your
I just
next
remember
comedian has watched The Tonight Show.
Yeah, it was just it was something as a joke. It didn't feel right away. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that again. I learned that was something that I immediately after my set was okay, that's right off the bat. First before I even
takeaway,
feedback number 1.
Never do that again.
Yeah, okay. Instant gratification of editing in real time. Don't ever do that. And I remember I was telling a joke about at the time I had a bit about I'm Polish on both sides, more on my mom's side, about having kielbasa at Thanksgiving, as well as turkey, and just kind of bullshitting. I don't even want to call it joking about it because it wasn't. It was riffing more than anything. And a woman in the audience, front left of me, wasn't laughing, but was just nodding along, being like, "Yes, I too have had kielbasa at Thanksgiving," and just feeling like, "Oh, I'm relating to you. I'm saying something from my experience, and you are understanding it through the void, which is the goal of art." And it's like, "Oh, I've accomplished the goal of art. I don't want to stop doing this," and that's why I haven't. Is it's the only form of artistic expression that I've ever done where I felt like I've conveyed what it's like to have kielbasa on Thanksgiving.
That is such a great story, and I do, to Lauren's point, I do appreciate, and knowing you a little bit more now, it makes perfect sense that you would be focused on the time and the like I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to do it correctly. And I love that. All right. Now I'm gonna slightly turn my body this way. How about you? Let's go into your origin story a little bit.
So I started 14 years ago. I was in college. I was in college for theater. It was a Bachelor of Theater Arts degree, and they were like, well, you need to do a certain number of just sort of miscellaneous credits. And I had a friend who was like, you should really do the stand-up class, Chili's Dojo at Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase. She had just taken it. She said it went really well. I was only 20 at the time. And
Where'd you go to school?
I went to U of M.
Okay.
And so I was able to audit it as an independent study. I read a couple of books about stand-up, and I wrote sort of a response about the difference between writing for stand-up versus doing like playwriting. And I have been doing it since that class. I think my first performance was February of 2009.
Nice.
And I did go to school for theater. I liked performance. I didn't come in as a theater major, but I transferred into it. I did a few different plays.
What was your original major?
I just went into the LS&A school because I actually originally auditioned to be in the theater school, but I didn't get picked because U of M's, like, bar is so high. Like, it's, like, up there. It's, like, Juilliard, Carnegie Mellon, and then U of M for a lot of the performing arts, which is great. Didn't get in as an undergrad, like, straight out of high school, because I also I went to a 300-person Catholic school in Royal Oak. We had one musical a year, and I was like, I really like doing this. I wish there were more opportunities. And then they had me do improv at my college audition, and I was like, I am not prepared. Like, I went, like, full Michael Scott, just, like, shooting people with a gun. I've got to bring them back to life. And I was like, this is mortifying. I never want to do this again. And I still am, like, allergic to improv because of that.
I had my first like real improv experience, and my brain shut down in a way that I was not expecting. I was like, and even the person who was telling me beforehand, they're like, oh, I've seen you do crowd work, and you could talk to people and whatever. And I was just standing up there, and they're like, okay, go. I was like,
it's improv in character. I can't do. One of the things I really liked about stand-up is I am myself. And these are, like, sometimes maybe there's an exaggeration, but they are true stories. It is rooted in truth of my life and rooted in, like, real perceptions of situations. And I did like writing. I took some playwriting classes and producing. And I did like acting. But to me, stand-up is just kind of expressing myself and telling people a little bit more about me and being able to relate to people. Because that's one of the things I really took from the Chili Chalice Dojo class was, like, he said the first element of every joke is shared experience. If it's something that is so unique it has only happened to you or it has only happened to a portion of the audience, the joke's probably not going to work that well because people can't relate to it. They don't understand what you're talking about.
Right.
So it's like set up, punchline, and this shared experience. And that was huge because I was like, oh, there's some shared experiences. You can have a shared experience, whether it's reading a news story and having a reaction to it or having kielbasa at Thanksgiving or whatever sort of chaotic family life you have. I mean, sometimes it can be a shared experience like, man, my mom is crazy. At least she's not that crazy.
Right.
Or like whatever that might be. But that was something that I felt like was super engaging and continuing to perform in it. So I kept on doing open mics all over the place. I mean, once I graduated college, I moved from Ann Arbor back to the Metro Detroit area, and I was going, back then, Club Bart's was a walking distance from my house, so I would go do that every Thursday, and back when I could stay awake until 2 in the morning and get up to work at Starbucks at 5, that was pretty sick. But it's been also really cool over the past 14 years to see sort of the changes in the comedy landscape. I mean, there have been so many independent rooms that have come and gone, and it's great to see sort of how different people navigate that and how different rooms can even change over time. I mean, there can be a booked show at a room, and then something happens, it closes, but then 5 years later, a different person is running that same show, and now it can be a completely different experience. It could be ownership at the bar change. It could be just the enthusiasm that the showrunner putting into it has. And I think, I mean, it was probably 3 or 4 years before the first time I was paid for comedy just because there weren't opportunities. I mean, honestly, I also don't think I was ready. Even the first time I got paid for comedy, And I mean, I think it's all that Dunning-Kruger effect, which is
Yep.
you think you're really good at something, even though you're not, and then you reach this pinnacle of, I think I'm amazing at this, but you're not really good. And then there's this thick slope of, wow, I'm terrible at this as you're getting better. And then slowly you start to sort of meet, okay, I think I'm good at this and I am good at this.
Yep.
And I was sure I was ready, and looking back, not sure I was.
Yep.
But it forces you, sometimes doing a little extra time, it forces you to be better and more.
Yep.
And it forces you to become, like, to sort of clarify who are you on stage as well. Like, what parts of you are the relatable parts? What parts of you are interesting enough to make you a unique person? I mean, there can only be so many people who are, like, sad about no one sleeping with them. That's not a personality trait.
Right.
So, what is unique about your situation?
I mean, have you thought about telling jokes about pornography
Yeah.
on the internet?
Yeah, that sounds groundbreaking.
I haven't
How about weed?
heard
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting to see, because like Dan was saying, I mean, I remember for a friend of mine's 16th birthday party, we all watched like the Dane Cook special at our house, and we're like, oh my god, this is so funny, Sufi.
Sufi.
And then when I was in college, I remember I was starting to watch them more, and I actually did a lot of extra stuff on movies when there were things filming here. And I was like a featured person on this movie called Virgin on Bourbon Street, and it was like Rob Schneider and Bo Burnham, and I was talking to Bo Burnham for a really long time, and then I like looked him up, and I was like, I could fucking do that. Oh, okay, fine.
That's so funny.
And that was actually like right before I took the stand-up class too, was I was like, oh, that's what this is? Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Now, do you, growing up, do you think that, how do I want to phrase this? Was it a given that you would go more performer, or did your family try to steer you away from more performer?
They're all, my dad is a huge performer. He's been in this one band for 42 years. He loves it, but he has a day job. So it's always been a really cool, like, you can still do this and not have it be your full-time job. Do what makes you happy. And, I mean, like, you still have to have a house, but you can still do what makes you happy and figure out how to balance those two. So I think I always thought it was really inspirational that, like, my dad, like, graduated high school in 1972, and he has been in bands since before he graduated high school, and he's been in a bunch of bands. He has this core group of friends that he's been in bands with for the past 50 years, which is insane. But he's also had jobs because he had a family to take care of. So he was able to still keep making a little bit of money from his music and still be able to perform and do this thing that brings him a lot of joy, but also there's other stuff you can do.
That is such a healthy blueprint, because you hear so many stories of someone coming to the realization that they want to do something artistic, and initially their approach is an all or nothing approach, and then the family comes in and it's, what's your fallback, what's this, and it creates this like, screw you, Dad, I'm gonna go do this. But to have that healthy balance of, sure, you can go all in, or you can also be passionate and not have it stress you out, and have it be a creative outlet.
Well, that's nepo
be a
baby.
person.
Yeah, that's the nepo baby discourse.
Right.
I remember I was reading an article. I think I might be mistaken on this. I think Kristen Stewart's father or mother is like a script supervisor.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, not like they're in the business, but they're not like
They're not calling
string.
shots.
Yeah,
Right.
it's somebody who's like an editor. And the person writing the article is like, that the fact that Kristen Stewart's parent, her father or mother is a script supervisor, didn't help her become an actress. It just showed her that living in the creative world was possible.
Right.
And that there's a way and how to like live that way.
Yeah.
Right.
And
It's
Totally.
exactly like I was saying, nobody told you that was a thing. So you're like, I'm just going to go play Tomb Raider.
yeah, creative people, creative people exist in their own world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm a consumer, not a creator.
Yep.
So I'm going to, watch silly cartoons on the internet.
Oh, exactly.
And be like, man, I wish I had the money to know what Flash is.
Right.
As a 15-year-old.
Totally, but
you know.
there is such a strong, I mean, there is, for people who are sort of exploring these things, it's cool that there are so many opportunities to like learn a little bit more about them, because I'm not gonna lie, like I did go to Michigan, but I'm an idiot, and like even as a senior in high school, people were like, I'm gonna be an engineer, and I was like, I didn't know you like trains so much. And like it took me a long
They love
time
trains all
to,
the live long
didn't.
day.
Like, and like my parents were like, why don't you go into engineering? And I was like, I don't like trains. And I sincerely did not understand it, and I could have been great at engineering. I wish I had gone into it so I could be like designing roller coasters right now. But I was like, it's too late to ask. We're too far in.
We've gone too far.
We've gone too far.
We
But people
cannot
kept
go
telling
back.
me I'm going to be an engineer, and I was like, wow, cool, trains. and it was that until I was probably a junior in college, and I was like, oh, okay. And like it took an embarrassing amount of time, but I was great at a standardized test. Let me tell you.
Gotcha.
Because that was not a question.
I want the world where it is a question. Where Brad Wenzel is writing the test. Oh, that's so good. I love that you guys both have like such an intellectual viewpoint on what can be seen as such a flippant passion and a dismissive passion, and it's really really refreshing that you guys are like, no, bitch, you can do this. You guys both have day jobs, and you're working on a nonprofit that is entirely around the importance of comedy. So kudos. Sharp left. Again, I'm going to ask Justin about his segues. But you mentioned kielbasa on Thanksgiving, and and it made me think about your sausage parties.
Sure. Great, let's go.
Yeah.
What are you ready for? Are you emotionally?
Are you bringing some pork out?
We're gonna be stuffing some sausage.
Casing?
So for those who don't know, which is probably everybody watching this, I live roughly a mile away from Dan Turco.
That seems high.
Yes. Less than a mile away from Dan Turco. And when we realized this, it was kind of a fun little neighborly, like, oh, that's so crazy. Because you had moved in, what, a year before?
We bought our house. We got unbelievably lucky because we were far enough into the home buying process that the pandemic didn't fuck it up.
Gotcha.
Because if we were even like one step behind, we would have lost. We either would have lost the house, or it would have taken like another year to move in, or it would have just.
Yeah.
We moved in during the pandemic.
Okay.
We closed in April 2020.
Okay, so it was just a few months. So I moved in September 2020. Yeah. Okay. And you know, it was a fun neighborly thing, and again, the pandemic's happening, so nobody's seeing anybody. And I really should have pulled it up before we started this, but I remember getting a message from you that was like, "Hey, we're having a sausage party." And I just remember being like so confused. Like, is this a bit? Like, what is happening? And then I found out, like, no, literally, you just enjoy making
It's
so
a family
much.
thing. It's so my dad says that
Genetic.
the family lore of it is my great grandfather came over from Cosenza, which is in the southern part of Italy.
Okay, thank you for answering
It's in the toe.
that.
So the port he left from was Naples.
Okay.
But Cosenza's south of Naples. So he came over with two things: a love of tomatoes and a sausage recipe.
What more do you need in life,
And
really?
I don't really like tomatoes, which is good because I like sausage a lot. So it balances out. 4 generations later, a little bit of it got
Things
lost.
change.
Yeah, things happen. So, when my dad was a kid, his grandfather and the cousins and everybody 3 or 4 times a year would all congregate at one of their houses and make hundreds of pounds of sausage. And
That's so great.
this was this thing that my great grandpa would be the sampler. Like that was his was quality control. But
Okay.
like different people had different jobs of mixing the meat or casing it or cooking it, and
Wow.
because sausage will last in the freezer for a few months. And this was just a thing. And when I was a kid, my dad would do it as a fundraiser for church and as a team building exercise at work. My dad just one day was like, wouldn't it be, this was a fun thing from my childhood. What if I did this
Nice.
with my friends
Yeah.
and coworkers? So he invited a bunch of people over, and, it just became this thing of, just this dumb communal, it's messy. Once you get over the thing
Yeah.
that is making sausage, it's very fun and very easy to do. There is just that hump at the front of what you're actually doing,
Right, like
the casing and But yeah, you get it over that, and it's very easy to do. And that was our housewarming gift, was a sausage grinder. And it's like, good, now you guys can go. And that's what we all. My sister has one. That's we all have grinders. The hand, it's a hand grinder, the whole thing. So. You go down to the butcher, get a bunch of pork, get some casings.
What's your preferred mix? Are you full on pork, or is it a blend?
I usually do. It's whatever you want it to be.
Right.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of sausage. Is whatever you want can go in it. You can be like it's very customized. Again, instant grind. You mix it. You take a chunk of it. You throw it on a skillet. You try it, and you're like, needs more salt. It needs more pepper, needs spice, needs wine or something, and you can put any, it's a very regionalized food historically, based on what everyone has every culture has one, and it's just, that's what was available in
Right.
Sicily,
Right.
This is what was available in the Levant,
Right.
was different
Right.
spices or different
Picture
meats.
it, Sicily, 1912.
Yeah. It's like, so we're from southern Italy and Sicily, so fennel seeds,
Okay.
red wine, white pepper, salt,
All
pork.
right, there you go. Sitting down with stand-up, exclusive recipe sharing.
But
for
I mean,
the-
it's but
There's no
Turco.
ratios in it.
it's
Yeah.
but the ratio change. It's I want more spice. Done. It's it's not. It's very slop. It's not. We're gonna measure out exactly. I think the recipe is like a scoop. I'm like, he's like, my dad was like, I think it was the coffee scoop that came with, or the scoop that came with a can of coffee in like the 50s, right?
Gotta hunt that down.
So so I guess a little bit, but you can you always start low and then you build up.
Of course,
'Cause you
right.
can't-
You can always put more in.
You can't take anything out.
Yep.
So it's you you always start it out more mild and then you turn up the heat or.
Was this something that that Jamie had ever had
No.
prior experience to? So how was that introduction? Jamie is Dan's wife.
So we went to my we weren't engaged yet.
Okay.
So we went to my grandmother's house. My grandmother lives in northern Indiana,
Okay.
Goshen, if you know that area. And it was over Christmas. My uncle was up, and his kids were up from Texas, and his wife were up from Texas. My family was in town. We're all, and it's like, okay, Grandma wants to make sausage, so we got a bunch of the stuff, and that was when my wife met a lot of my aunts and uncles and cousins, and my grandmother and all of these people. Like, this is like, hey, you're going to meet all these people. We're all kind of crazy. And also, here's a bunch of pork. And we
That
are
sounds
just
like
gonna,
my family parties too.
Yeah. And
A
it's
bunch
like,
of beer, a bunch of
Yeah,
pork,
yeah.
and it's too hot in here. Why?
yeah, it's wine and beer. It's, I'm my grandma's like, she's like, I got this Amish pig. I'm like, it's a good God-fearing pig. We're gonna because we
Didn't
don't
have to
butcher.
worry about screen time.
Well, and we're not
You don't-
butchering it or
And
anything.
you're not butchering an atheist pig.
No, that pig is that pig. It has to have the will. No, we don't. No, you go to the butcher shop and you get either already cubed or, ground really coarsely, and then because you don't want it. It's easy. I don't know how to clean an animal.
Yeah,
no,
that's the
We're
next
city
level.
folk.
yeah. Well, no, my we've always been inside cats. I come from a long line of, my grandpa was in the Army. He was an accountant. My great grandpa was in the Army. he was an attorney. Like, we are desk jockeys. We are, when it all goes down, we are like the first people that will die. Because we have no outside skills, like, whatsoever. I don't know the last relative of mine who owned a gun. Maybe in the 1800s, like, we tamed the wilderness and we're like, yep, not doing that again.
Did it. We'll keep notes.
Done. It'll stick, right?
Yeah.
We just immediately moved into boring white collar jobs.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And on your side, you mentioned, it's very similar to your family and just the loud. And I'm picturing, I've never met your family. Well, I take that back. I've seen your dad half a dozen times, thanks to prior mention to Jim Harper. But I've never actually met your family, and I just have this vision of a lot of noise, a lot of meat, a lot of beer. But everything coming out of that is like the coolest thing ever. Because, and I'm not trying to creep you out, but when I think of Lauren Uchailik, it's like, it's this compressed coolness, because people think stand-up is the coolest, and I won't step on it yet, but athletically, the coolest, the absolute coolest, and to have a dad who's in bands, the coolest, and the fact that you're confident and bring all of these people together, like, everything about you is just fucking cool. And,
Thank you.
and I imagine that comes from a loud.
It allowed a lot of chaos, a lot of sounds everywhere. I mean, like I was saying, like my dad, the other guitarist, and the bassist in this band, they've been friends since high school, and they all have kids, and then they have siblings with kids, and then we've all grown up in sort of this weird sort of like tribal like group, and it's wonderful. Like, they are my extended family. It's not like calling them aunts and uncles and cousins is not weird. It's
Gotcha.
like, it's a lot of cultures do that for this reason, that it's like, this is a family group along the lines of the way a lot of cultures have this extended family that is like, it's not just about like the shared bloodlines, it's about these shared experiences and how
Right.
we've sort of grown up as this just chaotic group of children being brought places. I mean, there are so many fun times that like our dad's band would like be playing in Traverse City, and they'd bring us all to a hotel, and then our moms would drink wine in the room, and they'd be like, you guys can play in the pool by yourself, right? The oldest ones are 14, but you'll watch the rest of them, make sure they don't drown, right?
Right.
And it was like, yeah, okay, we got that.
Sure.
That's for sure under control. Or like the stuff you find out as an adult that your parents were doing, that like, we have videos from my 6th birthday party, and I don't know if there's any other people who are old enough to remember Leaps and Bounds and Discovery Zone. There was a Leaps and Bounds it was McDonald's owned Discovery Zone.
Oh, yes.
There was one at 13 in John R. We went there for my 6th birthday, and my sister was a 2-month-old infant. I had a cousin who was 4 months old, and my parents used the diaper bags to sneak in alcohol, so they all got drunk, and they're crawling around in the tunnels with a video camera, getting lost.
And I'm sure
there
that
are, like,
video camera is huge.
Yeah, there are these videos of these adults drunk in the tunnels, and they were like, just so you know, Lauren, ginger ale is the same color as beer. And it's like, what a fun fact for me to learn. Like, and then I came out on the other end of it, where like I didn't really drink until I was like 27, because I was like, you guys are a mess. Someone needs to drive. And so I was like my sister and I are both very aggressive, like rules followers. And my parents are like, oh, get it, come on.
Right. Stop being so uptight.
Yeah, exactly. But there had to be an adult there somewhere. I mean, someone had to do it.
And if it's the 7-year-old, then it's the 7-year-old.
Someone has to be in control of this situation.
So then how does all of that in a rule follower sense lead to Whamtramic?
It leads to, I mean, I did sports growing up. I actually figure skated for 9 years growing up, like on
wow.
ice. I wasn't good, but it was fun. And so my parents were like, listen, you can either keep figure skating or you can continue to go to your Catholic school for high school. You can't do both because it's expensive and you're not great.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I respect that.
Yeah.
But I did that growing up. I played soccer in high school and like I joined the swim team. I just kind of farted around. And then similar to the Bo Burnham, this couldn't be that hard. I was an extra on Whip It, which was filmed here in Detroit with Drew Barrymore's directorial debut. And most of the extra skaters were Detroit roller derby skaters.
Okay.
So originally my agent had asked me to do like skate double stuff. They didn't end up needing that, but I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I would love to learn more. I was still in college. I graduate college. I'm working at a Starbucks, and this girl came in, and we were talking one day, and she was like, oh, you used to figure skate? Here, let you borrow my roller skates. You should join roller derby. We have a little class thing, like, next week. Did it, and I've been in it since early 2011.
Wow.
So it really, and it was something, I mean, a lot of it, fortunately and unfortunately, came kind of easy because I had sort of an athletic background getting into it.
Right.
But it made it so, like, I didn't have to work as hard for, like, the intro stuff, but now I'm having to work harder for, like, the leveling up those skill stuff. Like, originally I was like, yeah, standing on skates, great, easy, super, fun. Backward skating, killing it.
Right.
But it is a very sort of different kind of sport, and it's something that, like, being able to do it and have, like, a physical athletic outlet, and it's been cool also with the sort of tribe, I mean, for lack of a better word, I'm sorry to use sort of a word that has a lot of other connotations.
You've been canceled.
Yeah, I know. But there is this amazing group of really strong women and people that are supporting each other in sort of this athletic sense. And then I have comedy, which is almost the polar opposite, where it is mostly men, and a lot of times it can be a really supportive community as well, but it's getting different things from each one. It's being able to really express myself sort of mentally and emotionally on stand-up, and then with roller derby, it's just being able to, like, use your body in a way that makes you feel strong and makes you feel like I can still do things. I'm not, like, falling apart as much as I thought I was. My neck only hurts a little bit today.
Yeah, that has always been, I think, honestly, now that you say it, I think that Whip It was the first time I actually saw roller derby. Like, I had always heard of it and saw kind of a character or caricature of the roller derby girl, like in pictures or you know, comics or whatever. But I think Whip It was the first time that I saw moving pictures around it. And since then I've been to a couple bouts and kind of looked at it. But yeah, it's such a badass thing. Like, it just, in my impression, saying, oh yeah, I'm in roller derby is like, oh, I am a badass. Like, just a stamp.
Yeah, I love falling down. It's so fun.
It's more the pushing other people down, I think, that people connect.
Yeah, that could be really fun too, but also like, we've got these photographers that are incredible. They're volunteers. They come to, like, all the games and they take pictures. And there's so many pictures of me just, like, falling on my ass awkwardly. And I'm like, yeah! Like, you don't know how graceless you are until someone takes a picture of you falling down. And the look on your face of surprise as you're falling. Like, imagine if there was somebody capturing that every time you fell.
Oh, my God.
And also there were 1,000 people in the room. Great stuff. I'm very proud of every skill I have.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, we talked a bit at the top about the importance of the workshops, and before we wrap it up today, I do want to kind of cover off some of the key workshops to make sure that people are aware. Give the website again to buy tickets.
Absolutely, MotorCityComedyFestival.com. You're going to see, right now we have our full lineup of tickets available. But we're getting some confirmations on times for the workshop, so that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. We just approved our poster, so maybe I'll send that over to
Ooh.
Elena to put up within the Sitting Down with Standups feed. It's great. We use this artist named Alyssa Clash, who's done all of our artwork the last few years. Incredible stuff, very cool, weird,
great
creative.
poster last year, so I'm excited to see this
Yeah,
one.
we're really excited, but I mean, we're going to cover marketing again. Marketing is always one of the biggest topics that we have requests for. We are also going to be working with the talent agencies again. We've got
Nice.
podcasting, of course, is something that people are interested in. At both, we're deciding if we need to separate it into introductory and sort of advanced, because we know people are coming in with sort of different levels of questioning and different levels of experience. We're working on some more writing workshops this year. We are bringing back our reading a contract workshop, because that's one we were talking offline beforehand. It's such a big thing, and you don't realize you need it until it's too late usually.
Right.
So it's something that I want to try to help people to get out ahead of, because if, like, contract literacy is so important, and you could end up owing someone money if you don't read the contract well enough, or you could end up, like, not realizing someone legally has to pay you money if a show gets canceled or something. So there's so much important stuff to that. Also work with, we were talking to someone, I think we're going to go with a CPA company about 1099s and how to file your taxes, which again, our festival is in September. So people aren't necessarily thinking about taxes yet, but those write-offs can really save your ass.
And it's one of the things that, it's such a catch-22, especially when you're just starting out, because you're doing these shows and you're like, oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
And you've still got your regular life, and you're like, well, I'm not filming my Netflix special, so I don't need to worry about contracts. I don't need to worry about taxes. It's like, yeah, but you're doing shows,
Right.
and you are committing to things, and people are committing things to you, and you are earning money, and you are driving and putting out expenses, and if you don't take it serious,
Totally.
no one else will.
I mean, I used to see comedy money as just like, this is free money. Like, no one knows I'm getting this money. This is my secret, like, shame. I'm going to get this. I'm going to spend it on Taco Bell on the way home, and no one will never know it happened.
Yep.
Like, but realistically, as you start to hit that sort of next plateau of, like, doing a little more work where they're actually writing you a physical check.
Yep.
That's when, like, once that money is traceable, you start to get into a really weird land of, like, oh no, like, at a certain point they want you to start paying quarterly taxes if you're a 1099, and it's like, once it gets too late, then they're like, oh, by the way, there's some late fees for those taxes you didn't know you had to pay. Have fun, bye.
Yep.
And it's such a frustrating thing. So we want to try to provide education on things that people want to know. And hopefully, I mean, the people who want to know them, and hopefully the people who don't know that they need them, see it and are engaged in it too, because it's the kind of stuff that you don't know you need until it's like,
Exactly.
the situation has passed, and now you're like, okay, cool, I owe this person $500 according to this contract I didn't know how to read. So ideally, we'd head that off and try to give people those tools up front.
Yeah, and these are all topics that I really like that approach, the way that you said that you don't think that you need it until it's too late. So if you are a newer comic that is just starting to kind of go to the next level, or you're thinking that you might want to eventually one day, all of these topics are put there for a reason. No one is getting off on just teaching this stuff. It's there for a reason. So if you're like, I don't care about taxes, you probably should care about taxes.
At least a little bit.
Yeah.
And we try to make sure that everybody who's teaching these, I mean, we're not just like picking someone off the street. We want to make sure that someone has like practical knowledge in this. Like, we have a really funny comedian named Irina Kalm. She's originally from Chicago, but she works the road so much. She's performed in every state. And she's going to be teaching a workshop via Zoom about, like, planning a tour.
Nice.
Because she's done it all herself. She, like, retrofitted a van, so she's living and she's working, and she just works the road because she just loves it. And she's booked her own tours, and she's created this, and that's a thing where people, I mean, until you get to a pretty high level, you don't really have someone booking this stuff for you.
Right,
Who
right.
is really your advocate. So being your own advocate and knowing, and that sort of takes into the contract and the tax talk is,
Yep.
okay, so if I'm going to book my tour, these are all the pieces that work together. And I can create a tour as a comedian, and we want to help give people the tools because we want people, like, I want to see people succeed. It's really cool to see someone who you knew go do something really amazing and cool. I mean, after the first year we had the festival, within the next year, I think we had 3 different people do late night spots that had been on the festival. And I'm like, that's really
fantastic.
sick to see. Like, it's awesome to see, hey, these people are succeeding. And it's not because they did our festival, but it's nice that people see these opportunities and take them, and then having them participate in any way. It's great to see, like, okay, you're reaching that next step. That's so cool for you. Like, I'm so proud, and I'm so proud to see people helping each other, because it's not, I mean, yes, there's a limited number of booking spots, but not every spot is for you. Not every lineup is for you. I think that it can be so sort of, like, it can be such a weight on your shoulders to feel like everyone is sort of out to get you and out to compete with you.
Right.
When it's a bigger thing than that. It's a bigger world. There's enough room for more comedians.
And as you've talked about with the landscape changing over the last 14 years, it's going to continue to change over the next year, over the next 5, over the next decade. And in anything in life, in my opinion, it is so much more beneficial to learn the rules to then help you break them. Yeah. So it's like, here's kind of a baseline for you to know how to do your taxes and what the government expects of you and what you should read in a contract. And here's how someone else has booked their tour. So now those are kind of building those pathways to be like, yes, so now take that and make it your own.
Exactly. Because it's like, when I first started, I know we would see other successful comedians, and we'd be like, oh, cool. That's so cool. I wonder how they got that.
Yep, exactly.
But you didn't have a way of knowing unless you knew that person directly or you had a good relationship with them. It's hard to... I mean, there's a bunch of steps. There's a bunch of other things they had to do. Did they have a press kit? Did they have a manager? Did they have this? At what point do you need to start looking into this? At what point do you need to have a better website to do all of these other pieces? And I mean, it's like you said, it's a completely different landscape. Social media alone, it can be a full-time job. So how do you create that? And we're looking at, we're doing another workshop this year. Last year we had this person who has some pretty good social media followings talk about sort of what his content creation process is and sort of how he's used that and sort of optimizing algorithms and different things to help build that following, because it is bigger than just I can just perform stand-up and I can make it my job. You have to be able to do something more with that content, however whatever that is for you. And so we want to, even if this person doesn't have the exact same path as you, we want to see, okay, so this is a lesson you can learn from this person for free. How can you take that and have that help you?
Right.
Like, we don't want people to feel like only one person gets this opportunity.
Right.
This is for whoever wants to learn more and advance their career. If you're serious enough about wanting to do this as your career, at some point you're going to have to do more than just film TikToks.
Yes. And I think that was a key word that I don't know if we hit before, but all of the workshops are free. They will require RSVP, and all of that stuff will be up on the website. So again, Motor City Comedy Festival on all the socials, on the website. We'll post as much information when we get it. Thanks for coming and chatting, guys.
Thank you.
And happy sausage making.
Happy sausage. Happy sausage.
Yes.
Bye.
A very happy sausage.